beautiful humans. Welcome to Think Out Loud with me, a chatcast produced, hosted, and humbly offered by yours truly, Natalie Peterson, from my little neck of the woods in northern Colorado to you in yours, wherever and whenever that might be. This digital adventure is an effort to turn years of internal chatter, wondering, silent suffering, and physical and mental close calls into enlightening and empowering conversations with others. Given how many choices you have to spend your time, I consider it an absolute honor that you're listening in. I've personally made a living and a life of communicating, miscommunicating, over-communicating, studying methods, ingesting information, logging hours of trainings and classes and books and papers and online, you name it, building awareness and just pages upon pages and pages of notes. I go through notebooks of my notes around communication. And what I've come to believe and witness is that communication is energy between humans. And ultimately, communication starts within ourselves, the energy within ourselves. I'm no longer shy about sharing the details of my life story with the world, my energy with the world. In fact, sharing the beauty and the pain and the wins and the losses, the roller coaster of really awesome highs and some really messy lows has become, frankly, it's become my medicine. And it allows me to relate in raw and real ways. And here's what I know, that we know. Our minds, my mind, I'll speak on in first person. My mind can be my absolute best, biggest friend, biggest cheerleader ever. Holy moly. And my mind can be my absolute worst, darkest, pretty nasty enemy. I'll go that far. The same mind that produces sunshines and rainbows and unicorns and smiles and screams of elation also produces all my negative, destructive, wasteful, crappy, shitty committee feelings, right? There's an entire host of characters. There's roommates that take up space in my mind that on any given day can engage themselves in absolute fantasticness, or they can make me want to back out of life, crawl in my bed, and disengage from the world completely. Not today, though. I am up, I am out of bed, and I am fully engaged. Bring on the world, bring on my best self, bring on springtime, and bring on my guest today. I would love for you all to say hi to Abby Veliquette. She's a leader, a mom, a spouse, a teacher, a coach, an introvert, an empath, a follower of Jesus, and a recovering people pleaser. She is married to Jason, and together they have 3 young kids, Jack, who's 14, Kate, who's 10, and Jude, who is 6. And they all share a cute cat named Rose. In 2012, Jason and Abby started Sequoia Leadership Group and began coaching and consulting organizational leaders on their own. Abby is known for her engaging and authentic approach to inspiring learning, fostering insight, and being a trusted guide in challenging situations. She specializes in communication, leadership development, and human flourishing. And when she isn't making incredible connections with others, she loves yoga, swimming, and traveling. Abby and I met at Founded in FOCO in early March. She hosted a session for attendees on positive intelligence, or PQ for short, which happens to be a topic I absolutely adore. I was the girl in the room ready to raise my hand, nod along with every word Abby was saying, and participate with enthusiasm because you guys, holy moly, I adore this communication stuff. In particular, I love conversation around mental fitness, mental agility, mental muscles getting stretched, limber, stronger, ready to engage, flex, and perform no matter the situation. This means the soft, quiet stuff. This means the vulnerable, in the middle, courageous, raw stuff. And this means the high impact, charge, under pressure stuff, everything in between. Abby, thank you for being here to think out loud with me on this topic of mental fitness, especially the fantastic work you do to promote positive intelligence. It's a beautiful day to connect with you.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here, excited for the conversation we're going to have. And I just already feel at ease and ready to learn and create a conversation together.
I love it. I love it. It was, I will say, such a relief to step out and step up and start to examine the neighborhood of my mind, learn the players, develop a relationship with myself and my voices, the choir that makes up the voices in my mind, and curate a sense of self that I'm proud of. I'm interested, just to kick us off, in your own path to in developing your sense of self, and really, the roots of your own journey, how you got to this point, being such a champion of mental fitness.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you describe that. And it's making me think about how you talked about getting to know yourself, getting to know the parts of your mind. I think a lot of the learning that's available is about becoming awake to ourselves, about becoming conscious to what might be unconscious or what might be habitual patterns that we have. And so, as we do the work of learning about ourselves and recognizing those patterns, we can become awake. And that awakeness then provides the choice, the power, the responsibility to take different pathways, make different choices when we want to. And for me, I had a very similar experience to what you were describing earlier about the two different parts of your mind, where I feel like I'm two different people. Sometimes I'm this clear-headed, confident, able to make sound decisions, kick-ass woman. And then other times I'm full of self-doubt. I can't make a decision for the life of me. I'm angry. I hate everybody around me. So how is that true that both of those exist in me? And so through a long journey of self-work, but really as I got into this positive intelligence work, noticing that it's just what happens to us as humans who have a survival response, a fight or flight response. Um, that takes us sometimes into that darker part of our brain where we think maybe that's the best way to cope. And I can say more about that. But what I will say about my journey is that you mentioned in my intro being a recovering people pleaser, being a hyperachiever. Um, I have had to undo many years of conditioning around trying to be the best, the brightest, the most well behaved, the most moral. And those are things that are part of who I am because of my temperament, my personality, but also my upbringing, also socialization for females. Um, and getting to the point where I realized those things aren't working for me anymore. And what do I need to do to change some ways of being? Um, yeah, so I'll stop there.
When we talk about conditioning and programming, this has been a topic, a thread, through many of my conversations with others. And I'm sensitive to the concept of, there's a concept of coming into this programming and this conditioning honestly. We didn't set out to, our parents and our teachers, and there's not this plan afoot to, rear social, emotionally stunted or people pleasers or any, right? The conditioning and the programming that is, that we speak about were and are by folks doing the best that they can. And when we talk about coming into a place where it's finally time for me to start examining that and unwinding it and addressing and owning and creating my own program. But that's a big step in life that I think I don't think everybody gets there. And I don't say that meaning to sound exclusive, but it's a big step in life to be able to look and say, wow, are these thoughts my own? Are they a result? Are these tendencies a result of the conditions that I was raised in? And then to decide I no longer want this, and then work to undo it. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. Yeah. I love your articulation of that. And a couple things are coming up for me. One, when I was doing some therapy work years ago, we kind of got stuck, my therapist and I, trying to figure out, like, why was I the way I was? Like, what was it that had caused me to be this people pleaser, this high achiever? And we couldn't figure it out. And I felt really frustrated. Like, why am I the way I am? And I think it's all of the factors that you mentioned. And what I learned was that I, like, a lot of positive behavior was reinforced. I got a lot of positive affirmation for being a pleaser. I got a lot of positive affirmation for being a hyperachiever. And so there wasn't one particular traumatic incident. It was, like you said, the process from well-meaning people. And so what, in some ways, it almost doesn't matter why you are the way you are.
There.
And that's not to diminish the important work that happens in therapy. And it got to a certain point where it wasn't really fruitful for me to keep unpacking that. It was more important for me to do what you described, like, how do I want to be moving forward?
Yep.
And how can I take ownership for that learning?
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about this just this week, about how do we make peace with our childhood? How do we make peace with our imperfect parents who were doing the best that they could with the resources they had? And still take ownership for what we want to keep creating and growing in our lives. And I think it's a complex, ongoing process.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and in many cases, I mean, in my own path, I've realized that it's generational, the people pleasing, the passing down of the behaviors. I don't know much beyond my grandmother, but she was queen people pleaser. She could go into character and manage a room very gracefully, never let them see you sweat, passed to my mom, passed to me. And a flower farmer and a florist and a wedding planner and a funeral planner. And man, you've always got to be just even keel, right? And be able to manage everybody else's emotions, and be able to be stoic in the face of whatever's being thrown at you. And that, ironically, my mom became a florist and a wedding, and there I was managing weddings, managing events, right? And so I appreciate that, in terms of, in some ways it doesn't matter. You can continue to find evidence. What's the saying? Everywhere if you look for it, you're going to find what you're looking for, right? Okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you going to do with that now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the goal is not to be, I think I had to come to the realization that the goal is not to be happy, joyful, spirited 100% of the time, always up. That is not that's ridiculous to even expect of anybody. We're humans.
Mm-hmm.
Shit happens. Hard things happen. Grief happens. Every flavor of emotions happen. Situations bring to you things that you react to in very human ways. And so expecting us to be, and the concept of toxic positivity and all of that, like, okay, no, that's not what the point is. It is reasonable to want to be able to manage be aware of and then manage ourselves so that we can rebalance, so that we can come into alignment with who we want to be, not in reaction to what we're seeing, but in proactive, present state selves. And so I say all that as kind of a segue into this concept of positive intelligence, that positive intelligence is not a concept by which we're seeking to be super positive all the time. It is give us the 101 of PQ just at its very top, and then let's dive into the particulars.
Yeah. So I really appreciate what you said about it. It's not just about being positive. And I think it pulls from positive psychology. And I think we run the risk of oversimplifying, like, oh, I'm just supposed to think positive and then good things will happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
The really high level is that positive intelligence is about boosting you talked about it as mental fitness in the beginning, like the habits of your mind so that you can make choices about where you spend your mental energy. And that you can practice mindfulness. You can have a particular perspective that allows you to go through the difficult, negative, painful things from the best version of yourself. So it doesn't change those negative things. They're still there. But as I navigate through them, I'm going to be doing it with all of my wonderful executive functioning, critical thinking, wisdom, and experience that I have.
That's perfect. I love it. And so if mental fitness is a result of, let's say, growing your self-awareness, and positive intelligence. So to frame it up for myself and maybe others listening who might be familiar with the concept, positive intelligence shares core principles with emotional intelligence, right? So PQ and EQ are both quotients that can be affected positively with awareness, mindfulness, routines, and rituals, different than our IQ, our intelligence that is pretty much set for a lifetime. We can affect our PQ and our EQ by exercises. And really, let's keep the analogy going of the fitness concept. We can strengthen, we can flex, we can build muscles around positive intelligence, and ultimately become more the drivers of what we're doing rather than in the side seat watching things pass by, right?
Yes.
That to me, positive intelligence with its cast of characters, which we can kind of dabble in for a few minutes, is the way that I see this positive intelligence branded car. And I'm either sitting behind the steering wheel with all of the different characters that make up my personality, in the car with me, and they're either on their good behavior and I'm the one that's, or somehow I have, I'm either in the passenger seat, I'm in the back seat, I'm on the floorboard, I'm even in the trunk, depending on how far I've let this thing go off the rails, right? So all that, with that kind of in mind, what are the facets that make up positive intelligence? I know there's the judge, and right, the sage. Like, let's get into that mix just a little bit.
Yeah, I'd love to just talk about one more kind of high level concept here that will help set us up for that conversation. Because I love your metaphor there. And I like to also think about this as self-regulation. And maybe you've been hearing more about that, or like being able to calm your nervous system. All of that is in the same realm. And it's connected to our physiological wiring. Our bodies are designed to help us survive, to protect us. And for our ancestors, that meant that they had to fend off wild animals and be scavenging for food. So they were in these very severe survival situations. And their body would snap into these certain gears when they needed to run for their life or fight for their life. We still have those same physiological responses that happen for us, but usually when our body senses danger, there are those extreme circumstances, but often we have that same response when we're in a conflictual conversation, when we have to do public speaking, or anything that feels uncomfortable. Our body can interpret that as danger and send us into that physiological mode of fight, flight, or freeze. And I share that because it's just a wonderful reminder that when your body goes into that fight, flight, or freeze, it is prioritizing certain functions that are necessary for physical fighting, for running away, for freezing, and deprioritizing those more sophisticated capabilities that you have that I mentioned: executive functioning, empathy, creativity, innovation. All of those, any kind of positive healing is not necessary when you are truly in a life or death situation. So when we sense danger, or in our case, often just some discomfort, when our bodies go into that mode, we really shut down access to a lot of beautiful resources. So this positive intelligence is about, can we boost the muscles in our minds that would allow us to notice when that hijacking, that physiological response happens, so that we can shift back to the positive part of our brain that says, I'm safe, I'm not going to die, I can relax, I can take a breath, I can think before I speak, so that we're able to behave in the best way possible. Let me pause there because I said a lot. Any thoughts or reactions?
No, I think what stands out, yes, I think what stands out is the hijacking part, that there are moments where you feel like words bubble up. I can't help myself. I don't know what got over me. I don't know why I acted like, so it's this is to say, it is a very natural thing to be, like you're saying, to have something trigger a response that makes you want to come undone. We are humans first and foremost. That really resonates with me, that we're not broken. This is very much a human element, and how flippin' awesome that the human element allows us to sit here and talk about it from like, we're looking at it. We're able to analyze it and say, I got hijacked and I'm going to go this way now. I see what happened, and now I'm going to take back the steering wheel, and I'm going to veer back over here.
Yeah. Well, and some of the benefit of recognizing that it's a physiological experience is that then what are the counter activities you can do to tell your body you're safe, even if you are still angry at the person you're in conflict with, or still nervous about the presentation.
Yes.
How can you trick your body into saying, like, I'm safe, I'm not in danger right now? Deep belly breaths are a shortcut to tell our nervous system we're safe. Taking a sip of a drink when you're in the middle of a difficult conversation, you would never do that if you were truly in a fist fight. So taking a sip of something tells your body, I'm safe. So I love that piece of some of this is just physical. So what can I do physically to counteract this? And then the other part is the ongoing work of building the mental habits to keep shifting out of that negative brain space.
Yeah. I love the thought of being in fisticuffs and 1 second, please, while I take a sip of my ice cold water and
Yeah, but how great would our conflicts go if we did stop and do that, right?
Absolutely. They would be interesting to watch, if anything. Um, so yeah, let's talk about then what is happening with these different characters
Mm-hmm.
that make up the voices in our mind, and not and the kind of the setup and the way that positive intelligence works. By the way, I should just say that the PQ concept is one that first came to light. Well, I shouldn't say first. I don't know. I shouldn't say that so quickly, but the most popular take on it is Shirzad Shamin's positive intelligence, and the book that I came across, even just a couple years ago, I think it's only been, why only 20% of teams and individuals achieve their true potential and how you can achieve yours, really sets up this framework um, around PQ and fitness techniques, powers, characters, saboteurs. Not everybody has the same. This is all a very personal kind of experiment, if you will, around your own, self-awareness. So um, help us understand, help me reorient myself with who's playing here.
Yeah. So we've been talking about the two different parts of our brain, and there is neuroscience behind that too, like the different parts of your brain that are engaged when emotion happens for you first versus like your critical thinking skills. And to kind of, we've been talking about them as negative and positive. Um, the positive intelligence work from Shirzad Shamin talks about them as your sage, which is that wise, best version of yourself, your true essence, your strengths. There's several powers there, like empathy, creativity, like great perspective, the ability to stay curious. And then the other side, which is the saboteur driven behavior. And we all have a strong judge saboteur, judge of self, judge of others, and judge of circumstances. This is this voice that comes up and says, "Stupid me, why couldn't I do that?" Or that person, they do that all the time. Or why did this happen to me? Why didn't I get the job? This is bad. I should have gotten that job. Um, and that is the strongest voice for most of us, that we have to notice. And then, depending on who you are, there's 9 other accomplice saboteurs. And that's one of the things I love about this work is that um, it's it's customized to what you need to work on. And I just want to go back quickly to when I got to that stuck point in therapy. It was actually coaching that helped me keep my learning journey going, because coaching was like, how do you want to be in the future? How do we get you there? And I felt the same way when I was able to dig into this positive intelligence work, because it was like, I know what my problems are. How do I actually work on them? Like, how do
Mm-hmm.
I build a sustainable practice to keep addressing these voices that come up for me? And the daily mindfulness practices that help me particularly address my accomplice saboteurs, which are pleaser and
Mm-hmm.
hyperachiever, which I've been referencing all along, and my judge, allowed me to begin to really build those muscles and kind of chip away at that. And just like with physical fitness, it's not a one and done, it's a lifetime practice that you have to establish and maintain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting around uh the thread through all of us is this judge of self, judge of others, judge of circumstances. To have it boiled down to something that simple is enlightening. It's constant in if it's left to its own devices. This judge is constant, and exhausting
Mm-hmm.
to be in constant it's a constant competition with oneself, one's people, one's environment, and there's a control mechanism that's there, right? Like trying to control, thinking that we have control, or believing that we have some sort of control over external circumstances, external folks, external to us, to our situation. And that if we judge hard enough, that they will, or it will, fill in the blank, will shift to our liking and quiet the judge. But that's just not possible. The judge
Yeah.
is never going, the judge is never satisfied, ever. As soon as you check, you did it, then the judge is right there, and the judge shifts sides. The judge will be perfectly happy with one situation one day, and then the next situation be like, you suck.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you do it that way? Right?
Mm-hmm.
This judge is like super slippery.
Yeah. Yeah. And the first stage power we want to boost is empathy.
Mm,
Um, and empathy is love. I think love is the antidote to the judge, which is motivated by fear. It's fear of, not being good enough, fear of not getting what I need from that person, fear of things not going my way. You said control. Um, and it's either are we motivated by fear or by love?
mm-hmm.
And so that's why we have to boost that empathy for self, empathy for others. And um, and it doesn't mean that because here's the lie of the saboteurs. They say, you need me to protect you. The judge says, you need me to be critical of this situation because otherwise you're going to end up in this relationship you shouldn't be in, or this situation you shouldn't be in, or you're going to make the same mistake. And the lie is that we need fear, that we need to beat ourselves up in order to make those good decisions. When in fact, we can achieve the same things motivated by love. And when
Mm,
we are coming from that place of love, it's called I still get to have blameless discernment where I can be discerning and making wise choices, but that blameless piece is there. It's not coming from that fear and that judgment. And so this goes back to what we said before about it doesn't change that we have to make difficult decisions or that painful things are going to happen or that people are going to do shitty stuff to us. But that as I process through them, as I choose my actions, I am being motivated from my sage,
mm.
which is coming from love and deep perspective rather than that quick judgment, fear, knee jerk hijacking that we talked about.
Blameless discernment. What a beautiful concept. And having the wherewithal to take a breath and say, and ask ourselves, am I being motivated by fear, or am I being motivated by love?
Yeah.
And to really listen, not just ask it, but then be honest and really listen to that answer. Because I
Yeah.
would think that it, I mean, the unwind is is pretty tremendous, and it's not like this isn't a, it's in the same lines, like this isn't a judgment of character, like, if you have a judge and you answer fear to the, what am I being motivated by, and you answer fear 9 times out of 10 that you're a bad person. That's not like, this isn't a judgment of character, a judgment of your humanness. This is programming, this is awareness, this is a, a muscle and a level of, you say, trick, or it's not even a rewire, but just kind of a maybe it is a rewire, just rewiring of how we come into a situation. And that's going to
Yeah.
take time.
Yeah. And one thing that has encouraged me is to think about the goal is not for me to never feel fear because that's impossible. Like you're saying, like that's
Right.
not the goal. That's impossible. It's part of our human experience. But what if I can notice it and recover faster each time? Like I notice, okay, I'm being motivated by fear, or oh, I had a knee jerk reaction that wasn't great. can I shift out of it quicker than I did
Mm-hmm.
last time? Those recovery muscles are what we're going to aim for.
Mm-hmm.
And we use the metaphor of like putting your hand on a hot stove. It's like your hand, there's going to be a pain signal. And that pain signal is a really important information, but I'm not going to keep my hand on that stove. I'm going to take my hand off of it. So just like all these painful or negative emotions that come up, we have to pay attention to them. We sometimes have to feel them and process them. And then you have to choose to shift into motivation of fear, motivation of love, shift into the sage so that you can choose what to do with that information from that place.
Mm-hmm. And bringing full circle back to, the concept of conditioning and generational, unwinding of generational patterns. Or though I was raised in a home where we didn't talk about fear versus love. We did. I shouldn't say that. Now that I shouldn't say that, because I was raised around coming from a place of love. That where it got slippery for me was then not talking about the hard stuff. So it was said in theory, but it wasn't applied in practice, right? So emotions, anything outside of the emotion of love and the emotion of care was not addressed. So I'm curious, you and I are, dare I say, early middle-aged, somewhere around the middle, right? We're coming into this beautiful space of responsibility and awareness. We have young people in our lives that we're rearing and that we're helping guide. You've been involved with students as well. What are your impressions of emotional agility in younger generations that are coming after us? Like,
yeah. When you were describing early on about your grandmother and your mother and the ways of being that were necessary to make people's parties and lives perfect, I thought about how part of the empathy that I can have for older generations is that I don't think they had the language to talk about those things. And Brene Brown talks about it as emotional literacy. And it's like once we can read emotions and notice what's happening for us, we can check with others. Like, I think I'm seeing this in you. Is that right? It opens up a whole new world of being for us. And so what excites me, while young people are faced with all sorts of things that we weren't faced with, is that we have so much emotional literacy available to us. I think about the conversations I can have with my 10-year-old about the complexity of feeling different emotions at the same time. And that's amazing that she is building that literacy now. So my initial thought is one of hope, that there's so much more conversation around this, that if we can, it helps foster that awareness, that being awake to ourselves, and then also the freedom that comes with being able to choose what we want to do with our emotions and our reactions. That's where our power lies. And so I think that is available to young people amidst all the challenges they're facing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will add to that choice and which is agency, right? And advocacy for others, to empower others and to speak up and advocate for that choice. I'm hopeful as well. I totally agree. I love the conversations, sometimes uncomfortable, most of the time super sweet, but the conversations around emotions and how did that make you feel, and how could we have done something different, or what are we not thinking of, if we were to drop our own devices here. What are we? And we took the along the empathy line. If we took that person's point of view as our own, what would we see? And kind of diving into that perspective and letting it take us to different places. That's something I enjoy right now with my teenage son. And yeah, hope is, and he checks me too, right? Because of that power, and by power, I don't mean over another, but just empowerment to say it and to question it and to say, what are you feeling, mom? Do you seem to be a little, how does that make you feel, mom? I'm not hearing from you, mom. I see you shutting down, mom. Where'd you go?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see, how they become as adults.
Right. I said this morning as Cody and he was driving us to school, and we came up behind an older driver, and in her Colorado Subaru. Do you drive a Subaru? They all drive Subarus. I don't either.
Yeah.
So I'll just talk dirt. Came up behind an older person driving a Subaru, and Cody's, he's being such a responsible driver, and I'm super proud of him. And this older woman was going 52 instead of 55. And I said, well, 52 is comfortable, right? It's then the 55 is the limit. It's not the requirement, right? And so it says that's as fast as you can go, but nothing on that sign says if you go slower than this, you suck, right? So ease off the gas pedal. We're coming up to the stoplight. We're all going to get there in about the same time as if we were going 55. And then I said, someday you're going to be a grandpa, and you're going to have some teenager coming up behind you, and you're going to look down and say, I'm going my 52, and that's just right about where I'm going to stay. And that little teenager can just want to go 55, right? He rolled his eyes like, whatever, mom, that'll never happen.
Yeah.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. But you're feeding those empathy muscles when you have those kinds of conversations.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. If so, I think an access point to you, Abby, is like in terms of, I call them voices are a very real thing. They are a very real thing. And there are peer groups, support groups, for those of us who struggle with them more than others. But I think an access point to you is around this concept of understanding the judge and the saboteur and the other saboteurs that come into play. I want folks to be, if we've said something that's clicked, if we've said something that's resonated, I want folks to feel super comfortable reaching out to you. Because I know that what you do wonderfully and the magic that you bring to the world is partnering with people around this concept. You have your coaching practice with your husband, Sequoia Leadership. Website is the easiest way to get in touch with you.
Yeah, there's a contact us form there, or my email is great too.
And I would imagine that you do both in-person, digital, you do everything in between in terms of supporting people. Yeah. And Abby, so the sequoialeadership.co, correct?
Yeah.
So lose the M. Yep.
Lose the M.
Okay. And then your email address is abby@sequoialeadership.co. And then you're really active on LinkedIn. So, and you probably appreciate connecting with people there like I do.
Yeah. And I'll just say briefly that Positive Intelligence offers really easy tools to support this kind of growth and learning. And so I have gone through in-depth training, ongoing training, to be certified, and then have pursued a graduate degree in positive psychology. And so I can now guide people through this 7-week program. And there's an app that is just really accessible, really motivating, really easy to use. And then you have tools that are available to you for an entire year. So that's just a little snippet of what is available if people want to do kind of a focused learning here and build some of these mental fitness habits.
I love it. Yeah. It really struck a chord with me, and I can, personally attest to the value of the 7 weeks. Oh gosh, remind me of, what am I trying to say? The different exercises through the day.
Yeah, they're mindfulness. They're like 2-minute mindfulness.
Yeah. Just getting into that, creating new habits around mindfulness. And it's a wonderful program. And I hope folks listening will consider reaching out to you. Any last words of hope and encouragement?
Yeah, I just wanted to offer one other thought that didn't come up yet, but when we move to operating from the sage, being motivated by love, one of the things that is available to us is the love of possibility versus the fear of what are all the things that could go wrong in my life, or if this didn't go my way. And one of the things we work on is the sage perspective, which is the idea that with everything, there is a gift and opportunity. And just practicing that perspective, that whatever comes up throughout your day, asking yourself that question, what might be the gift or the opportunity here? And it doesn't negate the pain that might be present, or the difficulty that's present in that. But in light of that, what might be the silver lining? What might be the learning that you can pull out of that? And that can keep us in a totally different headspace. That can help us shut down those voices that you talked about. So just wanted to offer that as a parting opportunity for folks just to ask themselves that question: what might be the gift or opportunity here?
Yeah. I think that's what finally got me up and running with Think Out Loud with me. Is I could care less, what people think. The judge was, you're not going to get it right. You're not going to, there's plenty of podcasters out there. There's plenty of people already thinking about mental fitness. There's plenty. What are you going to bring to the table? What possibly could you offer this? And it was that part that engaged. It was that sage side that said, yeah, but you've got something here that's unique to you. And you've got the ability, the unique humanness to connect with others in a way that nobody else on the planet is doing, just like just like they've got the unique possibility. And that led me here to you, and the possibility of if I tap her on the shoulder and say, hey, can I talk to you a little bit more? Can we go share a cup of coffee and just get to know each other a little bit? The possibilities around that have turned out to be pretty beautiful. So I appreciate you so much.
Same. And I just want to say, your presence, your authenticity, your way of being creates an atmosphere where people can feel safe and at ease, right? Like I am presenting, I'm potentially doing a public speaking here. This is me. I need to be smart. I need to know what I'm talking about. It's a great opportunity for those saboteur voices to pop up for me. But the way you show up, because we mirror, we read other people's energy, you create that environment that invites me to shift to my sage. And I know it does for the other people in your life. So I just wanted to say that thank you to you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That means a lot to hear. It does. Thank you for taking time out of what I know is a busy day as a mom and a professional and a partner and just a human being in this big world, to sit with me and share space. And thank you, listeners, and anyone tuning in. Thank you for choosing to think out loud with me and my guest, Abby Veliquette. Until we visit again, go live with intention and love. And please, please, please whatever you do, don't let anybody fuck with your flow. Big hugs, big love. Bye, friends.